The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Hola, amigos.
Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page,
Hey there.
Josh Agala from the Standard.io,
G'day, mate.
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1, Bitcoin Launderer pleads guilty, admits to massive Bitfinex hack. As we talked about a couple of days ago, Ilya Lichtenstein, Razel Khan's husband, has taken credit for the Bitcoin Bitfinex hack, where 120,000 Bitcoins worth around $70 million at the time, perhaps even $2.5 billion now, were stolen by the pair, with now Ilya Dutch Liechtenstein taking credit for the hack. We're still not sure how he did it. Remember, Bitfinex was secured by BitGo and their third-party signing utility, which was supposed to sign every transaction. Bitfinex recovered from the hack by issuing debt tokens to their users, which they then bought back from their users at far less than 100% of the value of those tokens. Dan Eve, what do you think about the hackers, the hack, and now allegedly Ilya the hacker?
Well, it's finally all coming out, isn't it? And I think was it a couple of shows ago that there was the thought. I think it was Joss that said that if it was him, it would have been done like in some sort of like some not almost accidental way, but like a not like a he doesn't seem like a hardcore hacker, but it sounds like he said this is they fraudulently authorized 2,000 transactions. So it may be like it sounds like he did something that slowly leaked out. Whether that was actually hacking or not, we don't know. There's still not much information in there. But it does go much more with that story, right? That he was like a happy-go-lucky sort of guy that maybe just found a little loophole and was able to just keep on pulling out Bitcoin until he reached 100, 104, 113,000 or however many it was. I didn't realize that they're actually he was jailed, right? So I'm assuming he hasn't seen his girlfriend for a year, so he's actually been sat in jail awaiting the sentence. So I don't know. These court cases really confuse me.
The pair apparently blew each other kisses and
Yeah.
smiled from the stand, according to the article.
Sounds very romantic, doesn't it? But so you've got on one side of the fence, you've got Ilya who stole what was 77 million at the time. Obviously, eventually it was worth billions. And then you have obviously it caused a lot of furore, and he's been in jail for the last year. And then you've got Sam Bankman-Fried, who's still like at home playing World of Warcraft in his parents' pad, just like he was a teenage little boy again, spaffing off in his sock to all sorts that he can get his hands on the line because he's still got internet and stuff. And then I just think it's quite crazy how the stark difference between how these two are being treated, right? And Sam Bankman-Fried's obviously all these donations that he gave, they eventually pay off. But 20 years in prison, that's it's quite a big sentence. Obviously, a lot of people were impacted by Bitfinex. So the fact that they gave the people an opportunity to buy or have their token and hold it. It sounded really good at the time, but as you pointed out, they basically were able to buy their token back for nothing, leaving the people pretty much stranded without much to go for. And now they're possibly even going to get their Bitcoin back as well. We don't know that side of the story yet, but surely if the funds were stolen from Bitfinex and the US government now has the funds, you kind of they've got the exact Bitcoin as well, right? Because it went from one wallet to another. So it's literally their property. So will that go to Bitfinex? Probably, I think that's going to happen. I can see the US doing a bit of a grab and maybe taking a bit of a tax for it in some sort of way. But if it does go back to Bitfinex, it's probably not going to go back to the people now because they made good, which ended up turning bad. So it's just another sad situation where people got hacked in the early days, and then a lot of people were horrifically affected by the hack and end up with nothing, even though something comes of it.
Oh yeah, I agree, Dan. It's a potentially an incredible win for Bitfinex, getting their customers to buy back the debt tokens at less than 100, maybe even 50, maybe even 20%. And then, like you said, ending up with the original Bitcoin as well. It's just raining good times for Bitfinex, who seem to be totally incompetent if they were hacked in this way. Remember a similar hack, if we're going to call it that, the Mt. Gox hack, where the user had the money in a Cheetos tin buried under his house. He got those by refreshing the page. He did like a withdrawal. He refreshed the page. He got 2 Bitcoin instead of 1. He got a bright idea and he did it 100 more times. And suddenly he's a Mt. Gox hacker, and he was recently taken down as well. And as you said, keeping him in jail has forced Ilya and Razil Khan, one of them anyway, prisoner's dilemma, of course, to give up the location of their gold coins. Apparently, some of the laundered money had gone to gold coins, which they buried in the woods somewhere. And now there's federal agents digging up those gold coins. You have to wonder what Sam Bankman-Fried could be hiding and what we'd get out of him if we put him in jail like any other criminal awaiting trial and so forth. Allegedly, Sam's involved in the bald token scam. He may have dumped the tokens from his house. I don't know the details on that, but I've seen the internet speculating on other articles. And like you say, if he's at home and he has access to a VPN that he used to watch the Super Bowl, he could do anything else with that VPN, including leading pump and dump schemes. So it really seems like a danger and a threat to society. But of course, not all of us have parents that are professors at Stanford and plugged in. Victoria, what do you think about the so-called hacker? Seems more like a script kiddie, and the fact that he's now given up and claimed credit for the attack.
Well, at least he gets the notoriety. It said in the
it was so horrible. One of the articles said it said Razil Khan's husband, and I was like, the guy pulls off this giant hack, and he's just a husband because his wife was an online rapper, and she was Genghis Khan with a bit of pizzazz, and she really had a big personality on the internet. And poor Ilya, Dutch, doesn't seem to have that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it said at the end of the article they're now getting a Netflix series out of it, so he might be in prison, but at least he'll be famous. Will the money actually go back to Bitfinex, or will the government confiscate it? Because I mean, that wasn't clear in the article.
Well, I think it's different. In the past, we've talked about things like the Silk Road hack, where the Silk Road is an illegal business. Bitfinex is a legal business. If they had stolen property, I think it should be returned to them. It's not like a drug cartel where they auction off the boats or the cars or whatever. This is a legitimate business, however bad their security. I think they'll get it back.
Well, Bitfinex has done all right then. Because I mean, obviously the debt token that they issued, that was a real innovation at the time. And Simon Dixon's tried to repeat the same thing with Celsius without much luck, unfortunately. But of course, it's all past the fact that these were the things that happened in the early days. I mean, it just goes to show what's possible when it's the Wild West. But of course, we're still in that transition phase when we're dealing with the existing fiat system. I mean, there is going to come a point where the fiat system isn't going to be able to afford to do these sorts of court cases anymore. I think these are the important lessons that we really need to kind of like look at in terms of what's happened in the past. I think it's reassuring that if someone does go to that kind of lengths to steal someone else's property, it is possible to track it down. I think that is one of the arguments for keeping Bitcoin pseudonymous. I know there's a big debate in the community about keeping Bitcoin totally private, but the thing is, you're always going to have bad actors, and there needs to be some way to chase them up and find them accountable. So I'm glad in some ways that it's been the perpetrator has been found out. I don't think it's good for anyone to get away with that kind of thing. It's just bad for society if bad people get away with doing bad stuff. But obviously, I think in the future, the way in which these things go down may be slightly different. So, but yeah. But anyway, they get a Netflix series out of it. Good for them.
One more thing for me to watch. Excellent news. Josh Segala, this must be frustrating for you. I know no one's ever hacked Vaultoro by reloading the web page or generating transactions. However, Ilya allegedly hacked it. What do you think about this story?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've been very good with our security for launched in 2015. Never had a hack. We're one of the very, very few exchanges that can say that. It's yeah, I absolutely agree with Dan and Victoria and yourself that this guy was a script kiddie. He definitely just found a little flaw. And by the way, I want to poke some holes here at the ridiculous nonsense, uneducated fools that the regulators are made up of, because the regulators have been pushing everyone to go with the BitGo option. Now, I'm not picking on BitGo here. They're also a good product, but the fact of the matter is it's all automated. So, and your exchange, once you sign the key, BitGo also needs to sign the key. But how does that do it? Well, that server sends a message to BitGo saying, sign the key. And so it's just like, sign the key if you sign the key. Like, it's not any more secure, really. It's vaguely more secure, but it's really not. And this whole idea that because it's just all API calls, and so I find it. I totally agree, though. It's funny that it's Rizzo's husband. Like, it's like she had to, like, what? She's not even famous. It's like, what? How does she get like notoriety out of this? Anyway, it's kind of strange. It's a strange story. For those, you guys mentioned it a little bit, but I think it's fair. I think it's good to break it down what happened here. That Bitfinex, when they got hacked and everyone was pissed off and they had to either shut their doors and do a Mt. Gox and allow then the liquidators to come in and liquidate the assets they have left and then shell that out for pennies on the dollar to the creditors of Mt. Gox. Instead, they said, it's okay, everyone. We're going to give, for every Bitcoin that you lost, we're going to give you, I think it's something like that. We're going to give you one of these Bitfinex tokens. And we're going to run the exchange and make up all these fees. And that's your proof that you've lost tokens in this hack. And then you can claim all your money back later. And so everyone held it. Then a bear market hit. And you know what happens at a bear market? Bitcoin tanks and all other coins tank about 10x more, if not more, 100x more than Bitcoin. So what Bitfinex tokens tanked like crazy. And that's what, when these guys said they bought them back for 2 pennies on the dollar, that's how it happened. They went, oh, okay, well, we'll buy them back off of you, knowing that we're, and I don't know, in that state right then, were they looking in the back end, realizing that maybe they're onto a hot trail, that they're going to find the hackers, maybe at that stage, because they had to still have the gall to buy back that debt, because that still is money going out of their treasury. Even if it is, pennies on the dollar, it's still pennies on the dollar you might not be getting back.
While we don't know what happened on the inside, what they told us on the outside is that they were caught because they bought the Walmart gift certificates and the PlayStation 5. Something about that linked them back, and they were able to follow the trail. Many times we believe that, Tor is penetrated and they secretly use Tor and they don't want to tell us that it's penetrated or something like that, or each of our computers is sending out a message and we don't know it. But allegedly, according to the information we've given, it was the Walmart gift cards and the PlayStation 5s. I don't know if they were caught from traces that they left on the computers.
You know what, folks? You know what's better than a PlayStation 5? 10 PlayStation 5s. What? Such a weird thing to do. It's just weird. A juvenile bunch of thieves. That's why I'm not a big guy for throwing people into prison and making that. But in this sort of case, you know, these are people that they stole from thousands and thousands of people, from their pension funds, from everything that they've saved up for. And so that you have two choices as a hacker, I say again, hacker. You either, they could have quite easily offered Bitfinex and said, look, can we take 5%? We'll have 5%, we'll give you back 95%, scot-free. Here's how we did it, fix the patch. They would have been rich, life-changing money. Instead, they thought, I'm going to keep it all. But it's like the thieves that, you know, want to carry all of the loot, but end up drowning because it's just too heavy, but they're too greedy to let go. And so, you know, the plane dives or the boat sinks or whatever. So, you know, these guys could have offered been white hat and converted to white hat, even if that wasn't there. And they would have actually been sitting pretty right now. Instead, they decided to be greedy and go down with the ship. And it's really unfortunate. So for all those wannabe script kiddie hackers out there, if you do come across a big bounty, the advice to you is offer to give it all back and ask for a percentage bounty fee. You will be much happier. You won't be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. And you'll probably be caught if it's with crypto, because it's very traceable, unless it's with something like XRP, not XRP, something like
Freudian slip there.
Monero or something, XMR.
I do think in the thieves' defense, Josh, they were probably getting PlayStation 5 so they could flip them on Craigslist for money, the same way that people were using Tide laundry detergent at one point to trade for drugs, and you would use cigarettes in prison to trade for money. It's just a commodity.
Worth. Like, how many PlayStation? Like, this is just a stupid.
They would have had to buy hundreds of thousands of PlayStation 5s to even get close to flipping the money.
Yachts or something, you dumb.
And in the similar case where the guy had the Mt. Gox money in his Cheetos tin, apparently he had a lot of fun. I don't know the details. He had Lambos and all the things, but it just kind of shows you how if you have this dirty money, you can't buy $1 million house. You can't buy $1 million worth of cars. You're very limited in what you do. And like you say, Josh, being a white hat hacker, giving it back, even if that wasn't their intention, is probably a much better path for these people to go down.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the exit question. Forced prediction, and I think it's going to be a hard one. Who will the star of the Netflix show be? Will it be Razel Khan, the rapper, or Ilya, the hacker? Dan Eve.
Yeah, I think it will be. He's going to be like a sideline event to it. It'll be like it'll be like the weedy boyfriend and this like kind of very extravagant extrovert girlfriend, and maybe I don't know, but maybe she was in on it too, and he's just covering for her. Maybe we'll see some of that in the documentary. Maybe it was even, imagine, plot twist, she was the hacker and he's just completely head over heels in love, and he's he's taken the fall for her. This will be quite interesting with the way the court case plays out, and the Netflix. It's going to be one hell of a series. That's for sure.
Victoria, what do you think? Girl power, like the Barbie movie? I'll bet the PlayStations and Walmart thing was probably her idea too.
There's definitely some entertainment value in there, that's for sure. My bet's on the rapper being the main attraction.
Josh Shigala, who's the star, Ilya or Razel Khan?
I reckon it'll be Liechtenstein, the country, because I don't know if this guy's like slightly got some royalty heritage somewhere in the Liechtensteinian bloodline, but it's got to be this girl, because it's just horrible. Zero talent, but totally crazy. So it's kind of fun to watch because it's just so mad. Of course she will be. He'll be like this, like they'll portray him as this actual hacker when really he just went, oh, refresh, wow.
Yeah, he'll be a dark and shadowy figure, and she'll be someone like Kate McKinnon, someone all out there and crazy. Obviously, if you had the choice, I think the female role is the one you're going to want in this movie if you're out there, Hollywood people. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2, Bitcoin miners need the Bitcoin price over 98K by the halvening. As we've discussed many times on this show and will continue to discuss until around March of next year, the Bitcoin halvening is coming. That means that the amount of production of Bitcoin being made goes down by 50%. In the past, this has always led to the price rising either before the halvening or after the halvening. And as the article says, in order for the miners to keep making money, the price has to rise. It's around $30,000 right now. It would have to at least triple and a little bit more for the miners to stay in the black. Victoria Jones, what do you think? Will the price rise? Keeping in mind that Adam Back, famous friend of the show, has recently entered into a bet that the price will be $100,000 by the halvening. A public bet.
Well, I think it's a tricky one, really. There are certainly some analysts that I watch that talk about diminishing returns and the fact that, the next time may well be less than it was previously. I certainly think the previous high, a lot of people expected it to go a lot higher. And I think the things that kind of slowed it down were, the COVID crash, because of course the price was leveling off much higher, and then the COVID crash of course sent it down much lower than anyone expected. And then of course you had the Chinese miners, when we're just starting to get that trajectory, when it goes up, China decided to ban all their miners again. Great timing. And then Elon Musk sold off his Bitcoin. So there were, certain big events that definitely kind of cut into that trajectory. And so, we're reaching an interesting point, really. I mean, a lot of people expect it to kind of go on this run because that's what they've seen, in the past. But you have to recognize that Bitcoin has some powerful enemies, and they're rich enemies, and everyone wants the institutions to get involved. But of course, the institutions have a lot of money. And if they start using things like ETFs to kind of keep the price lower than it should be, then it could cause a lot of trouble. And you also, if you read the article closely, it's also worth bearing in mind that the miners need it to be at that level because a lot of them now have companies that are issuing stock. And so a lot of people are using these price predictions to kind of value the stock. So it's not necessarily the fact that the miners actually need that money for the electricity. They now need that money for their shareholders, which kind of creates another factor in the mix. And of course, the whole hash rate is designed to make sure that, when you start getting too many miners in the system, the game theory designs it so that some of the miners kind of drop off. It's designed to kind of set up this equilibrium. And so, you might have all of these mining companies that are kind of jumping in. They're making an assumption about the 100K price for their shareholders, saying, well, it needs to be minimum this. But then if it doesn't get there, there's going to be a whole lot of pain out there because it's not going to, some of the miners that can't support their shareholders, this is going to be something else that is another factor for them to deal with when they're trying to run their operations. And, this will be when, it's like fiat world meets Bitcoin world, and it could be carnage. It'll be very interesting to see how it plays out.
Josh Agala, what do you think? Will the price rise?
Yeah, it sure will. It's interesting though, because as Bitcoins become less and less available to miners, the less control miners have over the price, because at a certain time, the volume of the normal market far outweighs the amount of new Bitcoin inflating the market. But I think this round right now is kind of the last time that miners have a major say in that, because the volumes will start to reduce. Saying that, if the price does bump up to above 100K, it equals that playing field again. So it's this constant sort of battle between what one Bitcoin's worth and not. So right now, for instance, just to outline that, we're around about 19,450,000 Bitcoin, something like that. There's only 21 million of these. So we're very, very close. And so yeah, we'll see what happens, because what happens next to the price really decides what happens to the industry built around this thing. And many people say, oh, price doesn't matter, but it does. It very much does, because when the price goes up, Bitcoin businesses do well, and people build infrastructure, people build things that work, that start to work, and it ties into the bigger system. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it for the next bull run. I think Adam backs bet. I'm not sure when's the strike date of the bet? Do you know?
I believe he's predicted $100,000 before the halvening. So he's
See
all on this side of the wall. Yeah.
See that to me is a really tough bet. I don't know if I would make that bet. I would definitely make that bet 4 months after the halvening. I would make that bet. But yeah, like I said, there's already 19,450,000 of these things. So I think it could very easily, the Bitcoin market's one of these things. Once it starts going up, then people just pile in. People just start piling in. Just like on the way down, when it's going down, people just pile out. So it's not too far of a stretch to go from, what is it, 20K, 25K now or whatever, up to 100. It's not that big of a stretch, right?
And it's mainly based upon the supply shock, that there'll be less Bitcoin on the market. If you're an exchange and you're used to buying 100 Bitcoin a week, maybe you can only find 50 or 75. You can't get as much as you used to, and eventually that naturally should lead to a price rise. Dan, Eve, what do you think? Will the price rise by the halvening?
I hope so. I definitely think it's 100K before the halvening is a bit ambitious, right? Because based on, if you are looking at previous trends, the pump really comes after the halvening. You don't hit an all-time high until after the halvening happens, as Josh said, like four months or so. And actually, wasn't it like it was like quite far into 21 before. In fact, when was it? It might have
end of the year, it's December.
Yeah, like December, wasn't it? That it really hit 67. So yeah, so I think it's very optimistic. I mean, I also, Victoria's point on diminishing returns, I that's been stuck in my mind quite a lot, because of the fact that as you were saying a minute ago about there being less Bitcoin on the market, but as a proportion of the market of the whole, it's not actually that much. I mean, first halvening there was 50% of the supply, second halvening 25% of the supply, blah 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 blah. And you get down to when this halvening happens, we're going from 6% of the supply per year. Sorry, this is so to down to 3% of the Bitcoin supply per year, because obviously as the halvenings go on, there's more Bitcoin already in circulation, so the impact of going down becomes smaller, and so it's not so much of a chokehold going, as you would have done going from 50% in 1 year down to 25% in one halvening set to the next 25% in 12 and a half. So the shock of that supply shock, I don't think is as hardcore. I'd like to see it go to 100K before, and I think it would be, obviously it would be great for everyone in Bitcoin and who likes Bitcoin. Maybe the BlackRock thing will have an effect, BlackRock and these other ETFs. But then we saw in 2017 when the first, the futures ETF got approved, that's pretty much what caused the downfall. And there's that chart, isn't there, the chart of how when the first gold ETF got approved, the price of gold started to drop as well. So there is a history repeats itself, and if we get these ETFs, is there going to be a price crash because there's a lot more manipulation that can actually happen to kind of bring as said, the powers that be bringing things back to a bit of their own, what they believe to be equilibrium, and being able to apply the pressure from the other side. So it's not just a bunch of new internet money hippies like us that are buying. You can actually short it. There's a lot more financial instruments that can make sure that it does a downer. But is it March next year, right? The halvening March or no?
262 days.
362 days.
I
No,
think it's
262.
262. Okay, April, yeah. So it's it's obviously within the year. You look historic prices. I don't think we've really pumped that hard before. In 2020, didn't it go down to like 3.5K or something before the halvening in within 6 months of the halvening? So that's quite a big drop. But you look at the hash rate, right now, and the hash rate for a start is at like so according to BitInfo charts, 422 exahashes, which is pretty much bang on like the near all-time high levels. The mining difficulty is, again, I mean, every time you look at it, it keeps on going. It wasn't too long ago in April that it hit all-time high of 40 trillion, and now we're at 52 trillion. So it's gone up by another 25% in the space of 6 months. So the mining game is growing, but hugely growing. And they're not stopping now. Whether that hash power moves away from the US, if they start to get pinched, if there's new laws like the Biden administration wants to put this 30% mining tax on. I don't know if that's gone through or not yet. There may be even more stringent laws in states where there's a lot more of an environmental thing going on. So we could see that impact on some of the some of the mining companies as well. But they've had huge gains, like hundreds of percent gains this year, more than Bitcoin, it seems. So there's a lot of people backing the mining side. It's just whether they can weather the storm.
Well, I don't want this to be interpreted as investment advice, but my view on this is that this time the media is with us. More people know about Bitcoin. There's going to be more articles about the halvening. And though it's an outside chance, I think that retail could come back into Bitcoin, as we've discussed before, because of FOMO. People are going to say, people made all that money on Bitcoin last time. People lost money, and they're going to be watching CNBC, and they're going to hear about this event, the supply production going down by 50%. They're going to get out their old Econ 101 textbooks from high school, and they're going to say, supply down, limited number of Bitcoin. I should get me some of those. And that kind of retail pressure could launch this, as well as the ETF, which would have to buy Bitcoin to own the underlying asset, as well as the dozen other ETFs that want to compete with that ETF, which could continue to provide this buy pressure that we need. So I think we're going up. But moving into the exit question, will Adam Back win his bet, yes or no? And would you take that bet, Victoria Jones?
No, I don't think you will.
Josh Shigali, you pretty much already said no, but for the record, what do you say?
No, 4 months after, I say.
Dan Eve, it's looking bad for Adam Back's finances. I think he bet 100 million Satoshis or something like this on the thing. Maybe, I think that's a whole Bitcoin, something like that.
100. Oh, well, Jesus. Yeah. Well, I suppose. Okay. Well, I really hope he does, but it's not like the $1 million. Who was it that was Balaji that he bet? Did he settle that wager? Is that wager gone now? Did he settle?
He donated the $1 million to charity or whatever the deal of the wager was.
Oh, he
Yes,
might be
Balaji.
So yeah, but
Balaji predicted in an incredibly short window. It was something like in 90 days, just based upon media hype and his opinion. And later he said he did that because he wanted to draw attention to Bitcoin and so forth. But I think there's cheaper ways of doing that.
Yeah. Well, I hope it does reach 100K before the halvening. That would be jolly good for everyone, hey?
I agree with the panel. I hope that Adam Back wins, but it seems very unlikely. As Josh said, it's usually 4 months, 6 months, or whenever you personally give up on Bitcoin, that it will start to go crazy up. Or if you have to sell to pay your rent, it's always the next day that it goes up. So everybody, as soon as you're done making your panic sells, that's when it'll go up. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com. We've got 3,066 videos that you can watch, including new proof of work interviews that I shot while I was at Majorca Bitcoin conference. We've got an interview with Thomas from Electrum Wallet. It's very good. A second interview with Peter Todd about his first computer and timestamping and much more. And we've got Vlad Koste from Bitcoin Takeover Magazine. These are all on worldcryptonetwork.com. And I've been updating the podcast, so you'll see these on the podcast as well. and you can listen for free or watch at worldcryptonetwork.com. Moving on to issue 3. The SEC asked Coinbase to trade only in Bitcoin before suing the crypto exchange. Coinbase has defended themselves as being the white knight of the crypto industry, saying if they had done this, it would have caused all of these companies that are based upon altcoins or who have launched their own altcoin, such as PayPal recently, it would have caused them to fail. Ironically, I think members of this group for the past few years have asked Coinbase to do the same thing and have preferred Coinbase back when it was a much simpler exchange where you could only buy Bitcoin. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the SEC asking Coinbase to only trade Bitcoin, saying that it was the only one that was not a security?
I think it's very, very bad sign when the land of the free that goes around waging wars and killing people for the philosophy of freedom to then force companies to not sell certain mathematical products. It's just crazy. And I think it's revolting that when asked, well, what is a security? Will Bitcoin? Will there be a Bitcoin ETF? What do companies need to do to get a Bitcoin ETF? They're like, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. Go and ask ChatGPT. Like, just tell us what you want, you fools. You guys are regulators. Build the regulations. It's like saying, here's a game of Monopoly, play, and we're going to randomly just fine you and stick you in prison because you don't know the rules. Well, what are the rules? What are the rules? You go and ask ChatGPT. Like, just terrible. The guy needs to be fired. The whole SEC needs to be fired. Just like the FBI needs to be deconstructed. All of them. They're just a bunch of money wasters and pathetic. How many people have been absolutely rorted through the whole SEC just dumping news on the market to then destroy people's lives because, you know, they all of a sudden call something a security or maybe not or whatever. And then all of a sudden say, it's fine now, like with XRP. Now it's good, without much sort of explanation. It just, the whole thing is a rot. It's a big toll gate. They just want their piece of the pie. That's what it seems like to me. And it's just horrible. It's horrible to watch, especially that their whole shtick is to protect the little guy. And that's not happening. All the fines, do they go to the little guy? No, they get stuck in the pockets of the state. No one's seeing, no one that's suffered any suffrage on these tokens have seen anything positive from the SEC. So I just think it's horrible. I really would love if they just issued and did their job by issuing rules, proper rules that people that companies can follow. Instead, I mean, I don't know why I'm mentioning XRP. I don't really like that project at all, but it's like XRP was one of the first companies that are like, we're going to play ball with the regulator and we're going to get a license. Boom, 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 boom. Here you go. Here's millions of dollars. Here's millions of dollars into our lawyers' pockets so they can go with all the rules. And yes, now we're licensed. Next minute, you broke every rule. You owe us a massive fine of millions of dollars. Hang on a minute, we just tried to play ball. Now you're fining us. Like the whole institution is horrible. I mean, it really is. Just set proper rules, do it quickly and efficiently, and stop mucking with people's lives. Their actual savings in their lives revolve around the decisions that you make just off the cuff, and it's horrid.
Dan, Eve, I think the obvious South Park reference here is the Bill Belichick defense. I did not understand the rules. Coinbase easily could have used that, right?
I'm definitely with Josh on this. It seems like they're doing this almost just to be awkward, right? It's like it seems like a huge power trip to mess with people, and even like going to this recent comments about crypto and stuff. It just the whole thing. It just seems so sarky and sarcastic. It's like English way of saying it's sarky, you know. But the fact is they're not like they're not protecting people. Again, I'm just in agreement with Josh, like in the way that they should be, and protecting people should be providing the right guidelines. Because if they're hazy to people like, you know, to companies like Coinbase that are trying to play along and they're showing mixed judgment, then that's not and really when they should really, if they really believe certain things, they should be deterring people from using it. If you're an end user who's thinking, well, the SEC hasn't banned it, you know, look what's going on with Coinbase and stuff. It's if they're just flip flopping either side. Oh, they're XRP's winning its battle, therefore it must be okay. And then there's this flip flopping either side. And I definitely hate XRP, and it's like the longest running ICO. But I think it's a great example, Josh, of again, this kind of flip-flopping from the SEC when you need actual guidelines. You can't turn around after someone's done a bunch of things and say, well, you know, when they've asked your permission, and they go, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Like it just doesn't work like that. You're not protecting anyone. You're not protecting anyone.
And don't point to a rule from, I don't know, the 1500s and say, well, we got to have, you know, this rule here. I mean, it's cryptocurrency, like it's a square peg. You're pointing to a round hole here, mate.
Yeah, it's a new asset class. It's new technology. I mean, Coinbase pointed out that the law doesn't even state that what the SEC were asking them to do. So it seems like the SEC are just on this completely odd foot where they don't even know the law themselves by the sounds of it, and they're just trying to make it up as they go along. So what people need is clarity. What companies need is clarity. If a company comes to you and says, is this okay? Is this legal? You know, don't just go, gray area, or, you know, it's too, Bitcoin's too small now to even look at. Oh, lol, Bitcoin. We're looking at AI and all stupid comments and flippant comments like that. Do something that's actually useful and is gonna give people the right guidance. But put your ball, okay, I can't say that. Put yourself on the line, because they may not have balls. They may have balls and not have balls. It's 2023. But put something on the line. I'm not going to go down that path, but just, you know, anything. Not doesn't have to be a human body part. But your reputation is the best thing. Put your reputation on the line, and actually just make a proper judgment. But don't flip flop around. And the idea that they should suddenly delist all these. I know obviously it sounds a bit ridiculous, you know, Coinbase, you know, becoming the knight that saves everyone from crypto, but there's very damaging effects when governments make sweeping rules without really thinking about them, as we've seen with China flip-flopping and the impact that had on Bitcoin in the past, when China would say something and then the Bitcoin price would go boom, 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 and bounce up and down and whatever. And you know, that can still happen now, especially a lot with these other companies that are trying to establish their sort of their services. So yeah, I think it's just bad. Provide the good guidance and the right guidance, and make an actual statement. Don't make smarmy comments that just, you know, that show you don't understand the scenario, the technology.
Well, I know many people on this network over the years have declared Ethereum a security. It had a pre-mine, it had a development team, it had a marketing team, it had all of these things. But when the time came for the SEC to say whether or not Ethereum was a security, they said it's too big to regulate. They had waited too long. There was apparently an initial period where they could have said something and done something, and they didn't. And then by the time they were ready to say something and do something, it had gotten too big. So it is very sad to see these regulators wade in too late to save anyone, too late to help anyone, and then to only act negatively towards a burgeoning industry that could bring in millions and millions of dollars in taxes, in new jobs, in new innovations. As we always talk about with the internet and other technologies, you don't want to stamp down on them and then drive all the brains and all the innovation out of your country. But it does seem like that's exactly what they're doing by coming in too late, being generally uninformed, and then attacking everyone in the room. Of course, there's still a chance for Coinbase to employ the Chewbacca defense, also from South Park. Chewbacca is a Wookiee and he's from the planet Kashyyyk, but he's hanging out with Ewoks on Endor. It doesn't make any sense. You must acquit. The Chewbacca defense. Victoria Jones, what do you think about Coinbase being the white knight of the crypto industry by protecting all the altcoins?
Well, I mean, I think you've just said it really. I mean, it's too little too late, really. They're trying to close the door after the horse has bolted. And you know, I think this is just going to be the narrative going forwards. It's just like it's too late. As capital moves into the crypto space, the fiat world isn't going to have the money, even if they wanted to, anymore. And you know, that's kind of the game theory playing out that most of us saw in advance. So you know, you kind of sit on the sidelines and go, what are you doing? And apart from anything else, you know, trying to create rules after the event is just such bad form. I mean, there's no precedent, you know, there's no precedent legally anywhere where that's meant to be a good idea. And so, you know, the moment you try implementing that, you know, there's all sorts of other things that you're starting to disrupt. I mean, it's like saying, oh, you know, we thought there'd be a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit in this road today, but you know, now we're putting up a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit sign. And so anyone who did 20 miles per hour yesterday, even though it said 30, you're now prosecuted. I mean, it's the very definition of starting to get a dysfunctional society by the time you're starting to do that. So yeah, utter madness. And the only people they're making fools of are themselves.
Yeah. It's a little bit Kafka-esque, I think. We've gone well into Kafka territory here. So the exit question, and it's kind of an easy answer, but which is worse? The altcoins that were being offered by Coinbase, that is a publicly traded company on the stock market, which has moved very publicly to say which altcoins they were accepting. They had a couple of insider trading problems, but generally they tried to offer the good altcoins, or Hex, which has recently been delisted from Uniswap and MetaMask and went down another $500 million today, and is also being sued by the SEC once again 5 years too late after much of the damage has been done. Josh Shigala, which is worse, Hex or Coinbase's so-called white label altcoins?
I think the term securities for these things is horrible. It's not like, you know, we have a chance here to remove VCs out of funding some of these small cap projects and allow some people just to throw $10 at something and help a project out. It's a really great way of also supporting free and open source by buying a little stake in it. I understand that there are a lot of scams, absolutely, but these rules around securities do nothing to educate the naive investor. All it does is protect them from what? It doesn't protect anything. It protects the legacy systems that these things actually disrupt. That's all. And it protects the industry of vultures around venture capital, who basically who also actually take advantage of the old ICO thing. But yeah, you know, if Coinbase is right, like there's a lot of startups and things that wouldn't have got a chance. And by the way, if the SEC did go, this is my view, if they did go after Ethereum in the early days, maybe we wouldn't have this amazing technology right now. We certainly wouldn't have it in America. And the stuff that the amazing creativity is whatever you want to say about Ethereum, that it's not decentralized and yip yap yo, all the Bitcoin maxi talking points. Ethereum is a stunning celebration of creativity, not like to be able to like release NFTs and do all these the crazy stuff that's happening on there, the total Wild West, this exploration of of creativity and coding and maths and cryptography has happened because it has been the Wild West. And sometimes for stuff to happen, and be explored, there needs to be that exploratory space. And if we keep sticking everything into a round hole that was invented in the 30s around an orange grove, then it's not, that's a reference to where the Howey test came from. Then we're not, it's just, I just don't understand it. I feel really confused by it. I feel saddened by the fact that Bitcoin, really extreme Bitcoiners, look at me, I'm one of the earlier Bitcoins, and I'm not like, what we're doing here is all these people like wishing that other projects get destroyed by government regulation. And in the meantime, it's like separate money and state. What? How do you actually get those two to look? I understand if you're BitConnect, they should be taken to prison because it was an outright fraud, because they promised something and they didn't deliver and they destroyed people's lives, and it's horrible. But there's a lot of projects that really do want just a small grassroots funding, and it's a great way to do it. It's a great way to do it. That's just my point of view.
Well, funny you should say that, because the government often does stuff that they promise stuff and they ruin it, and then they destroy people's lives and take more of their money. So it's what the government does on a daily basis.
I'm sorry, you said it was a very easy answer. I just ranted for half an hour. Sorry.
Well, Josh, as we've discussed before, when I wanted to make my blockchain collectibles project, we looked at the various chains, and certainly we wanted to do it on Bitcoin, but Ethereum was a better option. When you wanted to make the standard, you looked at many chains and many options, came back to Ethereum as being the best option. And I don't want to spoil Thursday's news, which we'll talk about again, but when PayPal wanted to make their stablecoin, it turns out they made it today on Ethereum with the ERC20 tokens. So there must be something interesting and good about this programmable network that Vitalik has created and his people. And I think it's infinitely more valuable than, sadly, what Richard Hart has created. Of course, he always had his cabinet full of crystals and his candelabras and his fine clothing and something when he was talking about Bitcoin on these shows and these channels. But it got much, much worse with Hex, as I've seen from the documentaries and other things that are happening now on Twitter. Obviously, we're not involved. We don't know the details of Hex. But Dan, Eve, what do you think? What is worse, the Coinbase altcoins or Hex?
Oh, Hex by a trillion miles. Like, it's, the whole thing. I actually can't wait to see the as Miss Sheffield said, the highest of stakes, right? It's showing around the US, but I'm sure it will leak out onto the internet. But I'm really looking forward to it, because he's a crazy character. He's clearly pulling some crazy ass scam, and has been all along, with all the gains. Like, it was all the stuff that when you listen to him talk, it's all the stuff that you're told to avoid. Avoid high gains, avoid guaranteed returns, avoid all the things that he says are literally the things that you see that in leaflets about protecting yourself financially and all these sorts of help things, investment help. But just for proper goal, Bitcoin. He's requested it in the chat, so just for you, man, or woman, or both. 2023.
Well, and also the way that Hex was sold, I remember last year at this time I was traveling around Spain, and they had flyers up for meetings where Richard Hart himself would come and teach you about Hex. So it was very similar to OneCoin in that aspect, where they had normal MLM meetings where the guy said in the famous Chris DeRose and Junseth undercover video, I know it in my knower that this thing is going to go up and that it's going to double by November. And they weren't attacking the crypto people, much as the brilliant Facebook rolled out on the East Coast in the smaller colleges. The West Coast technologists had no idea what was going on. If you roll one of these scams out and you don't go after the crypto people, it turns out you can get a lot more money, and no one even knows what's going on, because certainly none of our friends were buying Hex, none of our friends were buying BitConnect or OneCoin, but a lot of other people were, and I don't think it turned out too well for them. Victoria Jones, what would you take, the publicly traded Coinbase or the privately shady Louis Vuitton-backed Hex?
Well, I've always thought that Hex was very unfortunately named. There is a theme park in England called Alton Towers, and they've got a ride here that's specifically called the Hex, because I'm not sure if Americans are aware of this, but Hex, the Old English word of a hex means a curse. So, just from that perspective, you just stay a million miles away. I mean, and it wouldn't, from the little I have seen of Richard Hart, it wouldn't actually surprise me if he'd named it that deliberately. It's just to, how foolish can these people be? So, I don't know. I mean, the industry is going to be full of it, and that's the nature of the Wild West. I mean, until Bitcoin was invented, it was actually illegal to create any other form of money than you could in America. And it's only because there was no way of stopping Bitcoin that all of these altcoins became available. And so, this is the new revolution, that there's something that, as much as they try, the government are really going to struggle with this. And who knows, that we think Bitcoin's strong, but who knows what could be a vulnerability in the future. And, we need these other projects and what they offer in the early days, because, it's out of that ecosystem that we could find something better. You just don't know, because if the world comes to depend on Bitcoin and then something goes wrong, then what do you do? I mean, God forbid that it happens, and there's no sign that it could, but you just don't know. So we need these other projects, and they may pump and dump or whatever, but it's all a learning process for the people who are watching as much as the people who are involved in them.
Well, I definitely agree, Victoria. Hex has been a terrible name the whole time. It's almost like naming your coin Doom. And then you're like, what happened to the money you put into Doom? Well, it was doomed. It collapsed. And then, of course, the classic example from the Silk Road imitator, the sheep marketplace. And everyone's like, oh, the service at sheep marketplace is fantastic. Right up until the weekend when they exit scammed and they fleeced all the sheep. And again, the kind of thing that we as, questioning hacker type people looked at and were like, what kind of idiot would leave their money in sheep marketplace? Well, it turns out a lot of idiots, and they all got fleeced. So sad for them. Moving on to issue 4, not to dump on Coinbase, but Coinbase looks to add Bitcoin Lightning for payments. Coinbase famously fought against the UASF, fought against the SegWit update, and ignored the Lightning Network for what seems like years now, and now is finally fully capitulating and adding the Lightning Network to Coinbase to allow quick payments and money to be sent from and to their exchange using the incredible Lightning Network, which only happened because the users rose up with the UASF, with the internet, with the conferences, with Twitter, all of that coming together, allowing this new network and other things like Bitcoin NFTs, the Liquid network, the side chains, other things to be built on top of Bitcoin, because we did not go the way that the big blockers wanted. Dan, Eve, what do you think about Coinbase giving up probably the last battle of the blockchain war and allowing the Lightning Network onto their platform?
Right, it's better late than never, right? Didn't they take absolutely ages to implement SegWit as well, native SegWit? So like they're behind and they even said in this they picked up a lot of critique because they said when they tweeted it, Brian Armstrong said it was a non-trivial ad. Like now, I've added Lightning to when we added it in to Reward Portal in 2020. It was like easy. It took a couple of days, and it was so fluid. We never had any problems. We used LN Bits actually back then in 2020. So and it worked absolutely seamlessly. So to say it was non-trivial seems like he got a few kind of virtual slaps for that. But the fact is, better late than never. Maybe it's going to help people be able to get into Bitcoin. Maybe they see that the idea of high fees, and they just want to, slowly build up a Bitcoin portfolio, but they want to buy it from Coinbase and send it to their wallet, but the fees are too high if they're sort of dollar cost averaging. Now they can use Lightning. So I think it's a great thing overall, and it's good that they're finally supporting this service. The infrastructure for it. It took obviously a lot longer than people hoped, but they're very much behind the times. Although they are, they added, what was it, Pepe coin pretty quickly, which is a bit stupid. Obviously, that's just activating an Ethereum smart contract, but they add all sorts of other crazy chains, right? But they don't add Lightning Network, which is part of the biggest chain. Like, it's part of Bitcoin. So they add Solana and all these other crazy little ventures, but not Lightning, which is a bit odd, but at least they're doing it. So kudos.
Well, and remember, Coinbase was also a backer of the Bitcoin 2x movement, where after SegWit, they wished to double the block size because they felt like it. No one really could understand why at that point they wanted to do that. Mad Bitcoins and others fought back online with the no 2x hashtag. And once again, in a shocking reversal, the users won. The large companies did not dictate what would happen to Bitcoin. They wanted to pick up the phone and say, hey, programmer, we need more block space. And it turned out it's not going to work that way. It's going to be much more of a research project, and it's going to involve the community who controlled the full nodes. Victoria Jones, what do you think about Coinbase finally giving in and supporting Lightning?
Oh, well, it's always nice when you get a corporation to give in, don't you? I mean, we can all feel like Erin Brockovich bringing down the corporations. But yeah, power to the people. It's definitely the people's money. Yeah, I mean, these are the stories that I love about Bitcoin. It's very heartening that we finally got that usefulness again. And in terms of Lightning, I mean, it boggles my mind why any exchange isn't doing that. I mean, you're meant to be at the forefront of the technology, although I will admit, I think Lightning is a little bit tricky to implement for corporations. Certainly having to implement a Lightning node myself, I think it's really well suited for small businesses, but more complicated for corporations because of the volume, because volume's an issue when you're trying to set up a Lightning node. But again, that's one of the good things about it, because it means it gives the small businesses a chance before the big businesses have a chance to step in. The only problem is the small businesses don't really have the resources to get it set up before the big business. So it's a bit chicken and egg. But again, it does level the playing field to a certain extent, but certainly for a crypto company, I think they should definitely be focusing on introducing Lightning nodes. So good for them. I'm very pleased to see it.
Josh Shigala, I know Vaultoro had the Lightning Network back when it was still reckless, and then changes were made and you had to take it down. Coinbase could have been right there with you, but instead they waited and they waited and they waited, and now I guess it's time. It's very not reckless of them to add this. So.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it on Bitcoin Magazine. If you type in Vaultoro's Bitcoin to Gold exchange implements Lightning Network, the first exchange in the world to implement the Lightning Network was us, Vaultoro.com. That came out 4th of May 2018. When seriously, there was nothing. We had to figure it out from scratch. There was literally no infrastructure to do it. We didn't even know how it really worked. We were like, hang on, but yeah, who runs the channel and how do you there was so much that could go wrong. It was super reckless. But it was, we're a very niche exchange. Vaultoro.com, Vault as in Vault and Oro as in gold, still going strong. But it's one of those things that's like, I don't understand. I really don't. The conspiracy side of me says, well, Roger Ver's quite a large investor. He was on the Bitcoin Cash side. He's a bit butthurt by it all. And but funny that you bring up the 2x thing, because we actually were one of the first to sign on the 2x as well. And we did so because the stalemate of the big blocks versus small blocks just wasn't shifting. It was like just big block, small block, and everyone was just fighting and conspiracy theories and shit slinging all over people. And it was a horrible, horrible time. And it was basically a stalemate. Nothing was shifting. There was nothing shifting. So it was like, okay, guys, let's do this. We double the thing if you let us upgrade to SegWit. The thing that happened then is that Bitcoin Cash forked before that could happen, because that was slated to happen later in the year. Then Bitcoin Cash forked off. So then I took my name off of the 2x, went to no 2x, because now we already have the split. Now we have the big blockers, have the chance. Let's experiment, because I don't know either, man. Like, we don't know. People believe fully that small blocks are the way to go. Some people believe slightly bigger blocks aren't a big problem. But this was the beautiful thing about Bitcoin and what Satoshi invented, that, hey, if the community doesn't agree, then split it off. Everyone gets one of each side anyway, and let's see. And then there was so dogmatic people like, no, I'm going to sell my coin straight away. Cool. Do what you want. This is freedom. Let's check it out. Maybe big blocks work. Maybe it's fantastic. I myself don't think it's the best way to go. I don't think that 2 meg would have blown the lid off of anything, to be really clear. I think we would have been fine. But because the reason why I took my name off of it then, after they'd forked as well, is that they had this no replay thing, which could have really caused problems. And I remember waking up, I had a dream like, holy shit, the Bitcoin network's going to full on fail because there's no replay thing and just get destroyed. And I woke up, I started making phone calls all around the industry saying, we've got to cut this off now, because we've already got the fork. We've got BCH now. And thank God they decided to turn that off and not fork onto the 2x, because I think that could have had some really bad circumstances.
Well, I think the 2x fork later crashed in the simulations that they were running, the code that they had anyway. And as you said, Josh, with the BCH split, Jihan Wu and Bitmain had pretty much prepared BCH. So it was like a loaded gun. It was ready to go. And then when they did fork off before the deal and kind of breaking the deal, I think everyone said, well, we got SegWit now. We're not going to continue that deal because they have forked off. And the goal at that time was try to keep the community together. And once the community had been split, well, everything was off the table. And many companies like Vaultoro unsigned the 2x agreement, backed away from it. It was really only Coinbase and kind of the Barry Silbert digital currency group that were really in favor of it at the end. And then I think 2 weeks later, their chain was crashing in the code. So it would have been very bad if we went with the 2x. And while this might not seem like the biggest issue, Coinbase adding Lightning 5 years later, it is important, I think, historically to talk about this and to discuss the historical aspects of the blockchain war. Of course, I definitely suggest that book. It's out there, the Block Size War, I think it's called. It's an excellent history, and it reads like a military history. The guy talks about the back and forth between each side, the public relations battle, and as well as the technology that went into that. And I think it's going to be a very important part of Bitcoin's history that will be always studied.
And where in
let's
that book
move on
too,
to,
they mentioned Vaultoro. They're like, Vaultoro's sign. I was like,
they
wow.
didn't mention Mad Bitcoins, but there's still a chance maybe there's a version 2.0 or something. But so close. But we have a bonus issue as well. Let's move on to issue 5. SEC Chair Gary Gensler pivots the agency's attention to AI. As it says in the headline, we can get to crypto later. The SEC Chair called AI the most transformative technology of this generation and stressed the need to prepare for its influence on financial markets. Let's go to Victoria Jones first. What do you think? Is Gensler telling the truth? Has he really pivoted to AI? And is AI a bigger threat than crypto?
Well, I think Gary Gensler is just starting to find himself in a situation where it's coming at him from all angles. I mean, you start off with crypto, today it's AI, tomorrow it's going to be something else, because the thing is, this is an industry that is exploding, that they're completely unprepared for. And it completely rewrites the rules. I mean, the rules are actually embedded in the cryptocurrencies themselves. That's the whole principle of it. I mean, you're designing software, which is a set of human beings have decided what the rules are going to be, and you've programmed them into software. That's the immovable object that you're working with. It's like irresistible force meets immovable object. It's like the immovable object is going to win. So it's like, get used to it, Gary. This is just the beginning, and it's just I think it's just testament to the fact that this is where we are now. This is where we are. They're fighting a losing battle, and so he'll get distracted by that. In the meantime, crypto will kind of continue to explode. Bitcoin will be over 100K by this time next year, and they'll be going, what do we do now? So sit back, get some popcorn, and enjoy the show.
It has a little bit of the old man yells at cloud meme feeling to it, where Zuckerberg was all about VR, and then he flipped really quickly, and now he's all about AI. Gensler and others were trying to regulate crypto as if their life depended on it, and now it's like, what about this AI thing? And it just seems like they're a cat distracted by shiny objects. And as someone that believes in government, believes in regulation, it can be helpful at times. It's sad to see the regulators acting this way and just seemingly uninformed, uneducated, just grasping at straws, which is maybe he's overworked, maybe he's stressed, maybe he needs more researchers or more people to be reading up on stuff. He's not getting the top of the page reports. He's not getting the summaries. Something's going wrong. Some kind of disconnect with his research group.
This show.
That's right. I mean, it's available to him, and it's free, and it's on YouTube, and we've been talking about this for years. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the shift from crypto to AI?
I just can't wait until he calls every UFO a security and asks for a license. The guy is just nonsense. He's a nonsense dick. He needs to leave. He just needs to go away. What's the SEC talking about AI for? What? Oh, whoop-de-doo, you can use it for some high-frequency trading. What does that to do with anything with what you do? Nothing. Just go and just go away, Gensler. You're just an annoying, just a lame person. Anyway, I've not much more to say about the guy. Honestly, it's just, he needs to use ChatGPT and learn what I don't know how to.
Well, you can learn it's not that great. It says different things to the same questions. It's a very much a work in progress. I'm afraid, Josh, that he's seen some of these stupid articles where it's like, we gave ChatGPT $20,000 and told it to invest, and this is what it said. Because those articles are just such nonsense. If they refreshed it and gave the same question 10 times in a row, ChatGPT would probably say 10 different stocks, 10 different mutual funds. It's never the same answer. It's not definitive. It's, once again, looking at a bunch of resources, much like the early Google was looking at a bunch of backlinks and trying to get the best answer. It's never quite definitive with its best answer. It's not a polished answer like Wikipedia, filtered by editors. It's a random guess. And if it could think about it for 10 minutes, or if it could think about it for 100 minutes, it would probably give you a different answer. So I'm afraid he's looking at those articles and saying, oh no, people are going to start AI investing, and they're going to start blaming the AI because they lose money. And once again, he's out there trying to protect the consumers after it's long gone. If you wanted to invest with ChatGPT choosing your numbers, or do that chicken poop bingo thing or whatever, people have all kinds of fun ways to invest that are utter nonsense. That they've tried in the past, and they will in the future too.
Yeah, Gary needs to just pop up in every bar saying, "How dare you place a bet on where that fly will land next?" There's some sort of license you need for that. The guy's he's a megalomaniac.
Imagine if he hears about sports gambling where people keep betting on their home team, even though we all know the Eagles aren't going to win. Yeah, it's just a disaster. People spend their money, they gamble their money in all kinds of crazy ways, and no amount of regulation can stop them from doing that. It's nice to have some guidelines, it's nice to have some reasonable options.
If
Maybe
you get
choosing
them,
from the Coinbase. Yeah, but
if it like just give us them if you got them. No, he's a megalomaniacal fool, that guy. I don't like him at all.
Dan, Eve, what do you think? Is AI a bigger threat than crypto?
Well, I think he's just saying that probably because he's gets to have a little break from maniacal crypto regulation, right? And it sounds like, you know, he has got a bit of a background in AI. He was it was 1997. He began getting into it when following the Russian chess grandmaster Kasparov's loss to the IBM supercomputer. He wrote a paper about which is in 2020, which was like must have been before he took over, right? Yeah, he's only been in that.
It could have been worse. He could have seen the AI on Jeopardy and said, "Hey, that looks like a problem."
So it seems like he's kind of almost like he's having a break from crypto, and he's going back to his old sort of February 2021. Yeah, so he actually wrote this AI paper before he went into the SEC in February 2021, or nominated by Biden into the SEC. So he actually appointed as chair in April. So he's going back to this old thing, right? And I think it seems like he may have a lot more interest in this, and maybe this is going to bode well for cryptocurrencies, allowing them to kind of innovate a bit more. Obviously, with the fear that the SEC will be off their back briefly until Gensler and the SEC turn around retrospectively and say you've been naughty, even though they've kind of lacked in their guidance and all the things that we've talked about. But maybe he disappears from the SEC and he moves into like AI altogether, and we get a different chair of the SEC who's a bit more crypto friendly. So I see this as a good thing. His attention is gone from Bitcoin right now, so that's a positive thing, I think.
Can I quickly say, if you want to make any money right now, short anything to do with AI, because Gensler is coming.
True that.
And I'm also being told that Gensler learned about AI after watching the 1984 film The Terminator, and he's been worried about it ever since. It just took him this long to finally write the paper. So before we go to predictions, I just want to remind everybody we'll be doing another show this week on Thursday and probably next week on Thursday. So same time, different day. I'm traveling, and it's just hard to keep the Friday schedule up, but put that in your calendars, Thursday. But now, Dan, Eve, you had a whole minute to think about it. Prediction or story of the week? We're going to Dan. What have you got?
I always on the spot. It's like, okay, I don't know. I've got nothing. Yeah, no. Prediction.
All right, we're skipping Dan. We're going to
prediction.
Okay, go ahead. What do you got?
My prediction is that Gensler is going to be replaced by AI. Why do you need? Because that's going to make an actual decision. If you give it to AI about it, what's the security, what's not, and all these funny questions about regulation, the AI will bloody answer it. The SEC just goes,
That would be much better. You get the clear instructions that Josh has been waiting for as a businessman. And again, another nightmare for poor Gary Gensler being replaced by AI, just like the Terminator. Victoria Jones, prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
Well, I've already shared my story of the week with you guys in private, but I'll share it with the audience now. Not being a hacker at all, I'm now on the speaker list for the Hackers Congress in Prague in October, which is pretty cool. So it'll be first time I'm speaking there. And I'm pretty chuffed about that.
All right. Congratulations, Victoria. And also, everyone should check out the new article in CNBC about Paralelní Polis. Very nice, detailed article going into the history of the space and the Hackers Conference that I think we've all attended multiple times here. So very cool that Victoria will be speaking there. Josh Shigala, prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
The standard.io, we're really close to launching. Oh God, it's been a long trail and trek. The smart vaults you'll soon be able to lock up very soon. Wrapped Bitcoin. Ethereum, Link, Arb, and Pax Gold into a smart vault and borrow against it. We're partnering with Link, Chainlink. We're doing there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. It's really, really exciting. Get over to the standard.io, join up on the Discord, join up on the Telegram if that's your thing. And yeah, come and join the fun. We're going to launch very, very soon. It's been really a labor of love. We've got to get away from these BlockFi and these centralized lending platforms. Not your keys, not your crypto. Yeah, it's on Ethereum. It's not like the most decentralized thing in the world, but it's more decentralized than trusting BlockFi or Celsius or some of these centralized lending platforms. You get to lock it up. You hold your keys. You borrow money from yourself, and it's really, really exciting. That the collateral management tools that we've got coming sensational. There's so much exciting stuff happening, and we're already doing some R&D to port it over to Bitcoin when you know, there's a sidechain available that can handle the computation that we're trying to do here. But it's super cool, and I'm really, really excited. It's going to be launching on Camelot Dex on Arbitrum, which is the layer 2. Which they didn't need a war to launch a layer 2 on Ethereum. They just did it and thought it was cool. Yeah, check it out. It's going to be really fun.
Very cool, Josh. Excited for that to launch. It's going to be very good. And just again, thanks to everybody for joining us on this special Monday night show. Apologies about Friday. I had Wi-Fi in the hotel, but as you know, not all Wi-Fi is created equal, and they just don't publish the up and down speeds in the hotel guides. You're flipping through and you're like, this one's cheap, that one's cheap, and then you end up in the cheap one that has Wi-Fi, but it was like 3 up and 2 down. It was just terrible. And it was, I don't know, I feel it was worse from our side. I had to do the introduction like 3 times. Victoria and Josh joined me for the first issue, and then we had to recreate it here. So it's always annoying when we're not able to go at the right time. But thanks, guys, for joining us for this makeup show. And be sure to give us a thumbs up down below, add a comment, hi to everybody in the chat, and subscribe if you haven't already.
Do we have the ball? Ball requests. Do we have the ball? The ball.
I think the ball is upstairs or lost or something, so we can't do a prediction. If you want to go around, we'll say, Dan, do you think it'll be higher or lower this time next week? We'll ask the panel. Dan's out higher. Josh, higher or lower?
Yeah, I reckon higher. Up.
Victoria, higher or lower?
Yeah, I think we're getting ready for a pop.
All right, and Josh has sent us a portable Magic 8-Ball webpage. We're going to go ahead and share this. So higher, let's see, will the Bitcoin price be higher? Because it's good to ask a yes/no question. Here it is. Concentrate and ask again. After all the work we did to pull up the webpage at the last minute and everything, and the audience even requested it. They wanted to know. Concentrate and ask again. That's the thing about oracles. They don't always give you the answer that you want, and oftentimes they give you both answers. So as the Cheshire Cat said once, some people like to go this way, some people like to go that way. I like to go both ways. Nice. So thanks to everybody for joining us, and until next time, bye.